As a leader, you have an obligation to your team. Let's talk for a little bit about what teams really need from their leaders. The first thing that the team needs is a place to thrive, an environment to thrive. And that means more than just the building. It means more than just the individuals around them. They need a place to get some work done. That means they need a workstation and proper tools to do the work that they've been assigned. It doesn't have to be Class A office space, but it does have to be a place where they're comfortable and able to do their best work. The next thing they need is supportive teammates. You selected the team. Does that team work together? Do they help each other? Each of your teammates needs a group around them that will cover their back. They need a group that will help them get their work done when they're stuck, and they will do the same thing when one of their teammates is stuck. Those are supportive teammates. They also need a servant leader, and we're going to talk about what makes a servant leader in just a little bit. I'll give you a hint. The servant leader draws the very best work out of everyone that they are leading. A servant leader leads those on their team to deliver the best work they've ever done. The next major thing that your team needs is recognition. That doesn't mean that you hold a parade for them every time something gets done, but it does mean that you recognize their contributions to achieving the goal that all of you are working on. It doesn't have to be major, but it does have to exist in some form that they recognize. They need real praise. They need the praise that comes from doing something well and something that you recognize. The fact that you called them out for it, either in front of the group or privately, the fact that you even noticed is a big deal to them. They also need constructive criticism. They need a leader who will call all of their work for what it is. When it's good, it'll be called out for being good. When it's defective, when there's something that has gone wrong, they expect you to bring it up in the form of a problem-solving discussion so that you can fix it so that it won't happen again. That's constructive criticism. The best way you do that is through coaching. In coaching, the coach, that would be you, does not give the client, that would be your teammate, they don't give the client the answer. What the coach does is to help the client find their own answer. And in doing so, the client, your teammate, owns that solution in their heart. They'll keep it and work on it much longer as something that they found compared to something that you ordered them to do from on high. They need the coaching. The coaching will make them stronger. It will make your overall team much more productive. Here's how to fulfill your team's ongoing need, because they have an ongoing need for direction and they have an ongoing need for vision. In the beginning, you created a vision of what could be, and you invited every member of your team to join you on the quest to achieve that vision. Don't let it die. If you never bring it up again, it may die, it may go into obscurity because no one ever mentioned it again. What you'll need to do is remind them of why you are working together as a team. Every time the team comes together, keep the vision alive by reminding them of what it is you're accomplishing. Remind them of the wins that have been made so far. Remind them of the things that you have encountered, the walls you have hit that you've broken through. Keep the energy alive, keep the excitement alive by bringing it up again. That goal, you need to remind them, is so big that no individual person can accomplish it by themselves. That's why you have the team in the first place. Together, they can achieve much, much more than the sum of the individual members. It's synergy. Be the servant leader. Now I'll tell you a story about servant leadership that I experienced that I hope you, if you haven't already, will experience it also. I want to tell you about 3 types of managers. The first type of manager was Sergeant Hard. I met Sergeant Hard in Charleston, South Carolina, when I was stationed in the Air Force. I was a navigation computer technician. Sergeant Hard became the new manager of our shop. Sergeant Hard cross-trained into our career field. He had no clue how our equipment operated, but he was our boss, and he let us know from the very first meeting. At the meeting where he called each of us together for the first time, he said, "I'm Sergeant Hard. Look at my shoulder. I have 8 stripes. None of you have 8 stripes, so you better darn well do what I say." He was a manager because the organization had given him the authority to be responsible for us. He was a manager in the fact that he knew how to keep track of our failures. And he had a very good track of the things that we didn't do that was up to par, the things that we may have made mistakes at. He collected those beautifully. He must not have had room in his book to collect the things we did well, but he could certainly rattle off the things that needed attention or that had been problems that he personally had overseen fixing. He was a manager. Not all managers are like that, but all managers are more administrator than leader. That was Sergeant Hard. Sergeant Hard rotated off the base while I was there. After he rotated off to a new base, we had a party. We didn't have it while he was there. It was a celebration party after he left. He deserved it. The next type of leader of an organization is better for the organization. I'll mention the police chief in the city where I live. I worked on the Public Safety Advisory Committee in my town, and in doing so, we created goals, and then each of our team members worked on those goals throughout the year. We were the only committee in the city that created goals in December that we'd work on for the 12 months of the following year. The city council didn't even do that. None of the other city committees did it. We did it. And the person who led the charge was the chief of police. He was a good leader because he could help articulate the vision that we were all aspiring to. He's a good guy. That's a leader. There's a term called servant leader. The term servant leader is thrown around a lot and it's misused a lot. So this is probably the time to get that straight. A servant leader serves those they lead for the purpose of improving their performance. A servant leader will make you dig deep down and deliver your very best work because the servant leader knows how to ring your bell. Let me tell you a story about a servant leader. His name was Sergeant Hooper. I love the guy. Sergeant Hooper was my boss when I worked in the Air Force in a navigation computer shop in Udon, Thailand. Sergeant Hooper rotated onto the base and became our boss, yet he knew nothing about our equipment. I don't know what the big deal was, but I always seem to get bosses who'd never seen our equipment, and suddenly they're the boss of our shop. Those of us who knew how to maintain these navigation computers were slightly offended that the Air Force gave us a new boss who had no idea what it was that we did. But he was put there for a different reason. The way he helped us wasn't in his knowledge of our equipment, it was in something much more important. Here's a story of how Sergeant Hooper won me over. I worked graveyard shifts. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a navigation computer torn down all over my workbench. I had wiring diagrams everywhere. I had circuit boards everywhere. Parts were lying all over the place. I was rushing to get this computer fixed because it was about to go back into an aircraft that was on hold until we could fix the navigation computer and get it back installed. Sergeant Hooper came over to my workbench about 3 a.m. and he said, "Goss, what are you doing?" Being a bit of a smart aleck and resenting Sergeant Hooper, I said, "Well, Hoop, I'm fixing a computer. What are you doing?" Imagine if I'd said that to Sergeant Hard. Sergeant Hooper wasn't fazed. Sergeant Hooper said, "Look, I don't know as much as you know about this equipment, and everyone knows that, but I'm pretty good at troubleshooting. Will you let me help you troubleshoot this problem and get that aircraft back into the air?" I said, "Of course. I don't know how you're going to do that, but let's give it a shot. Sure, let's do it." I didn't think he was going to be able to help. I was wrong. Sergeant Hooper asked me questions about signal flow from one end of that computer to the other. We got the oscilloscope and we got our probes, and we tested signal flow all the way through all 7 circuit boards inside that computer. We troubleshot down to the one that was defective. Sergeant Hooper said, "Well, do you want to get this thing? Have you ordered it yet from Base Supply? What do we do to get a new board?" And I said, "Well, thinking this might be the one, I do have one that I ordered a half an hour ago from Base Supply, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and their delivery is pretty slow." I looked over one way, and when I looked back to talk to Hooper, Hooper wasn't there. I heard tires screeching out in front of our shop. Hooper had stolen a pickup. He took off in the pickup, went to Base Supply. I don't know who he yelled at Base Supply, but he was back in less than 10 minutes. He showed up with the circuit board. He said, "Is this the one you need?" Yes, Hoop, it is. It is. He said, "Well, let's get this thing in and get this thing tested then." I said, "How did you get that so fast?" And he looked at me and he said, "Don't ask." We reassembled the computer. We bench tested it. We got it ready to go, all buttoned up, ready to go back out to the aircraft. I said, "Hoop, I don't have transportation, and it's really slow getting the shuttle at this time of night." He said, "Don't worry, we have a truck." Okay. We jumped in the stolen truck, and he raced out to the aircraft. I didn't know that truck could go on 2 wheels, but it did. We got out to the aircraft, we mounted the computer inside, we tested it, I signed it off, and that aircraft took off and went on its mission. I would have still been on the bench if it hadn't been for Sergeant Hooper. While he was our boss, we won the worldwide record for accuracy of the way we maintained our navigation computers. Our performance on our base was the best around the world. That was due in no small part to Sergeant Hooper. Sergeant Hooper was a true servant leader. He didn't know our equipment technically. He knew how to draw the best work out of each and every one of us. He worked with each of my teammates and did the exact same thing. That's why we won the worldwide record. When you're leading a team, if you are the servant leader, who's to say you couldn't achieve the same results? Focus on those human beings. Focus on drawing out their best work by coaching them, by being an example, and see if you don't turn your team into the one that holds the world record. You can be that servant leader.